First of all, thank you for taking time to do this today. For everyone listening, Dr. Mikey's taking time out of his day. He actually works at a hospital back at home in Wales when he's not in Liberia. And so he's in the car for us, which I really appreciate. Really quick, Dr. Mikey, we want to hear all about malaria, but the ambassadors are invested in you and like your family and all that. So will you just give us a quick, like, how was Christmas with the kids and Bethany? How did everything go?
Yeah, Christmas was great. I got back from Liberia just a week and a half before Christmas, and my parents visited, and yeah, lots of presents, and we did a lot of stuff with our church as well, which is lovely. So the opportunity to preach a little bit over Christmas in our church, and very much the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be continuing to share about Jesus loves me around here in Wales and a couple of churches in England. And then I'll be back in Liberia very soon, getting back to it. So it was a lovely Christmas and really, really good to come back from Liberia straight into that.
Yeah, nice. What was Chloe and Finley's favorite present?
So Chloe's favorite was a trampoline. She has no
Oh,
trampoline. She's almost two. She'll be two next week, and that's her big thing right now. And Finley has this little marble construction set where you can build like tubes and things and put marbles through them, and that's he loves that right now. So he's playing with that all the time.
wow, that's awesome. I've seen those. It's he must have like an engineer mind. So we'll get right to it with just malaria. I know that this is the first topic that I wanted to talk about in 2026 because it's I think the most rampant thing that you see at JLM and in Liberia in general. And so, if you will, just give us for Americans who are very removed from malaria, how does someone get malaria? Does it always need to be treated? Things like that.
Yeah, so malaria, very simple, is spread by a mosquito bite. It's basically a little parasite that goes around in the blood. Yeah, the way it moves is you'll have people with malaria, mosquitoes bite them, pick up the malaria parasites, and then they'll go and bite someone else and put the malaria parasites into them, and that parasite grows and causes all sorts of trouble. Really, anything from some patients just get kind of a mild fever and a bit of a sore throat to much more serious conditions, which particularly affect children. So, children with malaria, absolutely every child with malaria needs to be treated because a child doesn't have the same immune system as an adult, so they will not be able to fight off malaria very easily. So, in a child, what will often happen is their temperature will get very, very high, but then they'll run into all sorts of other problems because um, their blood count, the hemoglobin will start to go very low because the malaria attacks the red blood cells. Children with malaria can go into a coma because it can cross into the brain and start causing problems there. They can get real low blood sugar, so you'll have a child who may have been fine 2 or 3 days ago, then they get malaria and their blood sugar goes low, and then they can go into a coma very quickly. So very, very serious condition. It can affect a child's breathing. It can affect the whole, really every part of their body can be affected by it. And in Liberia, Jesus Loves Me, malaria accounts for probably between half and two-thirds of our admissions. So it's human. And in the outpatient side, you're looking at about maybe 40% of children who are coming have malaria.
Wow. And for most of those children, are they able to get outpatient care? They're sent home with malaria meds, or are they admitted a lot of the time?
Sure. So it depends how unwell the child is. There's a list of criteria that we have, which would mean that a child would need to be admitted onto bed. So that would be things such as if the child's very anemic, if there's any breathing difficulty, if they're dehydrated, if the child's going into a coma, if the blood sugar goes really low, or if they've got a super high parasite count. So we have a team in the lab at Jesus Loves Me who will look at the blood samples from these children, and they'll be able to tell you how basically how bad things are, how much malaria parasite is in their system. And if there's a lot, then that child. So you're looking at about maybe between 1 in 4, 1 in 5 children with malaria will be admitted, and the rest can be
Mhm.
treated antimalarials at home.
Okay. Can you talk about? I know that our ambassadors are familiar. We've talked about cerebral malaria a good bit. How do you know? Can you quickly spot a child in the outpatient line that may be suffering from cerebral malaria?
Absolutely. I mean, you can see straight away because it affects the brain. So the child may be convulsing, they may have gone into a coma. Um, Similarly, they might just be kind of really irritable, maybe not responding to their mom very much, just kind of lying there real lethargic. And once you have that and you're able to do a malaria test, then you know straight away, okay, we're dealing with cerebral malaria here. So, yes, it's not too complicated. And we have a triage system where any child who is lethargic or in a coma or convulsing, they get rushed straight onto the inpatient ward, really without any delays.
I can imagine being a mother and seeing your child, maybe not completely understanding either all that's going on. Can you tell us a story about, like, do you see children often come in with cerebral malaria, and then how long does it take for them to be themselves again? What do you see from the mom's point of view and the child?
Sure. So it takes a while. I mean, you're looking at least a week admission, usually longer if they've got that. And we had one little boy whose dad was actually one of the guys working on the construction site. Little 5.5-year-old boy originally came in with convulsion, and his mom had brought him in, was there with the auntie as well, and the child was convulsing. And as he came in, we realized that as well as the convulsion, which we were able to sort out fairly quickly, he was very pale. His hands and feet were super cold, and his pulse was very kind of weak and thready. And his hemoglobin, so his blood count, was 4.5, which is, I mean, a normal child's blood count is over 10 easily. So he was less than half the normal. So we were able to get him some blood, get him some fluids. And once we'd done that, and the convulsion had been treated, he basically just went into a coma, and he was asleep for a good 4 or 5 days, just alive by intravenous fluids and antimalarials going in every few hours intravenously. That was what was keeping him alive. And then a few days kind of after that, he just gradually wakes up, his eyes start to flutter open, and we're able to start doing a bit of feeding through a tube in his nose. Really, about 7, 8, 9 days into things, he was able to sit up and start eating again and get onto the oral antimalarials. That was quite a journey. I mean, he was admitted for about 2 weeks.
Wow.
But there's no way that was survivable. Even if they'd waited till the hour, probably would have died that day.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. As the doctor, when you're seeing this, when you're seeing that he's in a coma for 5 days, how are you? I mean, do you feel confident that he's going to come out of this, or have you seen it go the other way as well?
It's very hard because sometimes you can see it go the other way. I mean,
Mhm.
children in the States or over here in Wales, they would be in an intensive care unit. They'd be on a ventilator, all kinds of different things going on, different fluid balance charts, and all these kind of things. And we don't have any of that. But what we do have is some fluids, some good antimalarials, some oxygen, some blood. And so it's actually very, very hard to tell if the child
Mhm.
get better. So you're in this realm of uncertainty for about the first 4 or 5 days. And you
Mhm.
I mean, when I'm there, I live in a little apartment which is about 200 yards from the hospital. And through the night, my phone's always switched on. And you're always sitting there at night thinking that there's going to be a phone call that says this child gone downhill. This child is even sicker than they come here now, and you might have to start doing CPR. So, yeah, I mean, I've seen it go the other way many, many times.
Mhm.
But really, I mean, with the right care, just doing things quickly, getting oxygen on, doing everything fast, we're usually able to see a pretty good outcome.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank God for JLM is what I keep thinking, that there's a place that when a child is that sick, that they don't have to drive 4 hours in the car to get to another hospital. I have two more questions for you. One is how is I know you're somebody that probably keeps up with the science of malaria and prevention in the future. Are there any new upcoming things that you can share with us about malaria?
There are. I mean, one of the big things that's going on right now is the malaria vaccine. So Jesus Loves Me is actually very involved in this. We have immunizations going on every day. So we are every day we are immunizing, several dozen children for malaria, and that's going on. I mean, just the last couple of months, we've immunized, I think, about 700 or 800 in a month, and it's going to keep increasing. So
Wow.
that's strategy, and that's only come in really the last 6 months as the malaria vaccine. The other thing that's huge is bed nets. So mosquitoes are the thing that transmits them. So if you have a bed net that stops a child getting bitten at night, and then if you do some other things like keeping the children indoors at night, just avoiding obvious areas where there's loads of mosquitoes, you can have a huge impact. And particularly, I mean, it's a whole public health thing, really. Dealing with some of the standing water would be very, very impactful. So another thing, now that we've got the malaria vaccines going, the next kind of stage really is to look at how we're doing with our bed nets. Can we do some kind of bed net distribution?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Um, and the last thing I wanted to ask you was if for an ambassador here who is very removed from malaria in her day-to-day life, and maybe she's thinking like, I give $30 a month. How much could that really do for malaria treatment and prevention and things like that? Can you explain to us like just how inexpensive it is to treat malaria in Liberia?
Oh, it's very inexpensive. So on an outpatient basis, really, you're the actual malaria drugs, just the drugs themselves, you're looking at about 40, 50 cents. And see, there's other costs as well, like sponsoring like the nurse salaries and the physician assistant, all of that kind of stuff. But again, it's not very expensive. I mean, one of our nurses is paid $370 a month, which in Liberia is a good wage. But that is not particularly expensive. And certainly what we're able to do, what that nurse is able to do is provide the care that's needed. So provide those intravenous fluids, provide the anti-malarials. So if you're supporting a nurse or if you're supporting part of their salary, you're basically supporting someone who's keeping a child alive. To be honest, on an average day, if you have a child who's admitted in Jesus
Mhm.
Loves, it costs between $10 and $15 per day to keep them alive.
Wow. Yeah,
It's
that's
not.
good for us to know. That's amazing. Something that we would spend in a drive-through on the way to work. So, um, thank you so much. That was great. I really just appreciate your insight and talking us through something that we don't see every day. But we can, I think, through talking to you and seeing what's happening at JLM, it can start to become a personal thing for each of us in our fight against malaria because it will take all of us. So we appreciate you so much. I know you need to get back into work, but thank you so much for taking time to do this. And I can't wait to see you in February. We'll be there in
Yeah,
person.
looking forward to seeing you too. Thank you very
Okay, great. All right, go eat your biscuit now.
much. Okay. Yes. Okay.
Bye.